Welcome to the Private Practice Pro podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping therapists cultivate success. Here's your host, Kelley Stevens.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Private Practice Pro podcast. I could not be more excited because one of my best friends is on the episode today. And Sasha, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell everyone just who you are, where you are right now, and tell us about your practice and maybe your other business too.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We were just joking because I think this is like the most awkward question.
This is the hardest part. The introduction is literally the hardest part.
Oh my gosh. So I'm Sasha, as you said. I am a mom of two. And I really specialize in helping women through the perinatal phase. So in pregnancy and postpartum, and especially women that struggle with this transition with anxiety and ADHD in particular. I find those show up in early motherhood in different challenging ways. And they did for me in really unexpected ways. And I think led to my challenges with postpartum depression with my first daughter. So I also have an online course. We have two online courses, me and Alex Steric. And they're amazing. They're so fun. They came together. They're kind of like our like little baby. They came together really just out of Alex and I having our own struggles and feeling like no matter what books we read, there really just wasn't anything out there unless you knew what the name of what you were looking for. If you knew you were looking for postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, and those books were written for therapists. They weren't really written or guided for real moms. So our courses, we have a course that's specifically for couples and a course that's specifically for individuals. And they're on our website, Thrive After Baby. So they're just super, fun.
So, okay, all the info is going to be in the show notes for this, which is great. And there are about 1,000 questions that I want to ask you today. It's so funny to be talking on podcasts because so anyone who's listening to this, I feel like I want to give them a little background on how we know each other. Because if you've listened to my podcast before, sometimes I interview people I know, sometimes I interview people I don't know. I don't usually interview people that I've known forever. So it might feel a little more casual today than normal, which is great. But of course I also have a cold, so like I'd probably sound like I'm underwater. Okay, so I was trying to think this morning when we met, like what year that was.
Oh my gosh. It had to be somewhere around 2010 or 11.
Yeah, maybe
your guesstimate.
2012. Okay, so I remember how
2012. Yeah.
Yeah, we're younger than we think. I can remember. Okay, so Sasha used to be my boss, essentially. Yeah. I know you don't like when I say that, but like that's true. You were my boss. Here's how I came to work with you. So I was in grad school and we both decided we were both going to work at this same group practice treatment center, whatever. And the way that I got this job was the owner of the treatment center. I asked him if I could take photos for him for free because Okay, so I wanted to take headshot photos of the staff.
I remember thinking you're such a genius when this happened.
This was genius. So I convinced this guy to let me take photos, and he did. And then, so I did that. I took some photos. I met you there. But then the next day, I also said, okay, well, I'm willing to volunteer to work for you guys or whatever I was doing. This was like for a month. And you set up this photo scavenger hunt. We worked in a teen treatment program and it had all these disposable cameras. I don't know if you remember this. And we had the teenagers like take photos with the disposable cameras or something. And I remember just showing up and you're like, all right, like this is what we're doing today. And then we were just like, and then that was it. The rest is history. Now we've known each other for friggin' 15 years.
I remember that.
Yes. I remember being like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I looked up to you so much and I was like, she's going to know I have no idea.
Wow. No.
I'm like, I'm just going to tell these kids to take photos.
Being so impressed of like how, like, how you got yourself like in the position that you did and just being like,
it was a lot of
like,
maneuvering.
That's badass. You know, I don't know if I can say that, but
yeah, you could cut. People cuss out this. Like we've said, there's been crazy stuff said on this podcast. Okay, so to like give people the overview, basically, we worked at this adolescent treatment center together for I don't know 5 years, 4 years ish, whatever that is.
More than that. I think I was there for maybe 8 years total. Yeah, maybe like 5 years ish.
That's a long time.
It was a long time.
I feel like in many ways, I grew up as like a baby therapist with you. Like I feel like so many of those like learning memories of like, there were so many times, Sasha, when because you were the clinical director for a long time. You were the director, so many different director roles that you were. I can't even keep track, right? And I can remember writing parents' emails, like teenagers' parents' emails, and having no idea how to word them. This is when I was pre-licensed. And you would literally sit down and be like, okay, here's how you can be like clinically appropriate, respectful, and help the teen advocate for and you would help me write the actual email. Which like, I feel like we always forget like how hard that was. You know, now you've been in practice a long time, we forget. And then we both eventually left. We both eventually opened our own private practices separately. And then really started supporting each other in this idea of like opening online courses and multiple streams of income and supporting clients in different ways. And again, I can remember calling you, I don't know, about 2 years ago now, and saying like, I see that you're launching this online course. I'm going to do it too. How hard could it be? And I think you said like, yeah, do it. It's not that hard.
Yeah. We don't know what we don't know, right?
I think back on that conversation, and I think it's a really good thing that neither of us knew what the hell we were doing. Yeah. Like had no idea. Because
I have redone this process. Like, I think this is the last time we are redoing it. But like, we have redone our process and learned so much. I mean, we must have recorded our course now, like behind the scenes, like 10 different times. Like, it's just like hilarious, you know? And we've learned something pretty massive every single time that has brought it to where it is now, you know?
Oh my gosh, yes. Like, I think back on that initial conversation, and I think if either of us had known more, one of us might have talked the other one out of doing it. Or not. I mean, people ask me now about opening an online course, and I tell everyone they should do it. So let's start with that. Let's start with Thrive After Baby. So before we go further, just so people know what we're talking about and we're not just talking to spread. So explain again what Thrive After Baby is exactly. So like for people who maybe don't know what an online course is, like, can you explain it a little more?
So Thrive After Baby, like the way Alex Steric and I see it. So Alex Steric is a colleague, friend, fellow mom. The way we see it is Thrive After Baby is really a space, a community that is just non-judgmental, where you can acknowledge that like you love being a mom, and also like there's some days and some moments and some weeks and some months that are really hard, and to be able to talk about it in a way where you're not shamed. And our courses reflect that. And so our courses, we tried to make them in a way that feels like you're getting some of the same tools, the same strategies, the same stories that we would share with a client we were working with or a couple we were working with. And the first course is really, it's called the Roadmap to Parenthood. And it's really just diving into like the why, the strategy, and then how the heck to maintain it and how to be a team through the whole thing. So that mom's not left kind of feeling like she's the manager of the whole thing. We really kind of lean into both partners taking their part and understanding each other's part, whatever that looks like. And then the Connected Couples Guide is our couples course. And that's really focusing on like really rebuilding the friendship and the romance and the intimacy after baby. Because so many of us, I mean, Gottman's research says that 67% of couples report that, that their marriage has changed. Their relationship changes after baby.
Dude. I can relate. I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I think just being able to like, even if you didn't have challenges in your marriage, being able to go like, God, like how do we find each other again? How do we like feel silly and butterflies for each other and not just feel like roommates and not just feel like we're two exhausted people passing each other and like, taking care of the home and our kids, but how do we really feel like best friends again? So our second course is really guided to that versus the first course is like, let's figure out our stuff and like why this is really hard for us. And then the second one is like kind of like the rebuild.
I love it. So let's go back to when you first thought, okay, we're going to build. So tell me, how did you and Alex get to the point where you're like, we want to build a course? Like, what was those beginning stages like?
That's a good question. So Alex and I both around the same time. Our kids are like literally both of our kids are like around the same ages. We both have 2 kids. They're both again around the same ages. And both of us, after struggling, we're like, this is something we want to help other people with. Like people don't talk about this enough. Like, and all of us are internalizing this as we're just bad moms. Like, and this is awful. Like, this is BS, Yeah. And so we both started like doing a total deep dive, getting all these different certifications, going all over the state.
Yeah, you guys went and got a lot of certifications. I remember,
a lot of certifications. Yeah. We met with like the megas of like this kind of movement to support moms, to support dads, and to just not feel alone in the transition to parenthood. So we were actually in Santa Barbara. So this is after several different workshops, trainings, and we were at a workshop with one of the founders of PSI and then, some other individuals. And we were talking about the challenges of like, it's hard to get moms to come to groups. And this was like right before the pandemic, right? And so I was pregnant with my second daughter. We were talking about it's hard to get people to come into groups. It's hard to get a partner to join therapy a lot of the times. Even when we're working with moms, like we're finding that their biggest thing is the challenges that they're having in their relationships, but their partners won't come to therapy. There's no time. There's a financial aspect of it. And then like the more we learned, realizing like, gosh, like it's so hard to find a specialist in this all over the country, a million different things, right? We were like, how can we overcome this barrier? Like, because everybody deserves help. Like everybody deserves to know what we know. Like, this is crazy. This should just be given out like all the time.
Right.
Like we should all know this, And so it like all of a sudden, like we were in this workshop because the workshop was really focused on like how now all this stuff and how can we support you in making the change that you want to see. Right. And so it just like we were sitting there and I was like, what if it was like a course? Like, what if it was a course that we broke it down into all the things that were really hard for us? And then it came to be. And the first version of the course, although I think it was good, it was too education based. Like it was like a lot of information because I think we were so excited to like be like, all the info.
Right. Here's everything we know about perimental.
Which I think we got good feedback on of like, it was a lot, Yeah. Whereas like the second course, I think reflects more of, okay, now we've like really been able to sit back and it really feels like you're sitting with us and we really break things down. And it really feels more like you're sitting with us and working with us. Right. And you're getting a lot of the same type of things or strategies and tools that you would get if you were working with us. It's not therapy, but it is a lot of the same tools. So it'd be like if you or I went and bought a really amazing self-help book, right? We don't have the therapist with us, but a motivated individual could follow all these things and could take quite a bit from it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think that's one thing I love about the parenting space as a new mom myself is like, I love resources that I could do at home. And I think you're so right. Like there's so many barriers to moms getting help outside of home. And like, I even can relate to that. And like, I was in this prenatal yoga class and I loved it. It was my like favorite thing of the week. And I said to the teacher, like, why don't you have a postpartum yoga class? Like, I would come. And she's like, I guarantee you wouldn't come. And I was like, what? She's like,
Wow.
I've run it so many times. And like all these moms when they're pregnant, she was like, have you ever noticed that these are all first time moms? And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa. And now, yes,
My-
100%.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like, and as a
Yeah.
mom, and granted, I was a mom during the pandemic, but still, yeah. So I think that that's the beauty of online offerings that therapists can give. You know, it's like, I always tell
Yeah.
people, we were taught to meet clients where they're at, right?
Yeah.
And so in this day and age with COVID, and you're talking about early motherhood in COVID, and just in general in our world, like people are home. And so
Yeah.
other creators, other educational providers are giving out resources or are creating resources that moms could do at home or that people could do at home. And so I always tell therapists, like, join the conversation, join what's happening now in our world,
Right.
you know?
Well, and it's interesting, like you say, like meet people where they're at. I also think it's like meet people when on the timeline they're ready. Like one of the mistakes we made is like, we really wanted to prevent people. So like we started out as preparing for baby, not right after baby. Because we wanted to get people before baby. But guess what? Like no one wants to hear that you might acknowledge us. They're like, don't tell me that.
No, I'm
That's not
buying a crib. I'm fine. Yeah.
Right. Like, no, my nursery is beautiful, you know, and so it didn't do well, you know, at first. And it was because we were hitting them at the wrong timeline. Like they didn't have enough experience yet to be able to know if they needed us or not. You know, we were telling them they did, but we weren't realizing like that's not the time to approach them. The time is really like from 3 to 6 months is usually when a mom or dad is realizing like, I just don't feel like myself. It's been long enough. Like, something's not right. And I want to feel better.
It's like the adrenaline is worn off. Like I think that first month, like I seriously feel like I was high on adrenaline. You know, it's just like, I'm a mom, watch me roar, you know? And then you get to 3 months and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing?
See, I felt like a zombie. I felt like a hollow, sad shell from the very start. Like it, you know, and I think like every mom's story
everybody's really different. And I was on some Lexapro from the very start.
Yeah.
So like that helped probably. I love me some Lexapro.
Right.
I had a question. Oh, okay. I want to come back to this of like a specific time when someone is struggling. So this is something you and I talk about a lot of like getting the messaging right when you decide to create.
Yeah.
God, I mean, how many conversations have we had about messaging?
I feel like for anyone who's listening, who's wanting to create a course, that is the number one thing that you should focus on. Like no matter how excited you are, it's that focusing on how you tell your audience something.
Yeah.
Because we, like Alex and I, were speaking to our followers, our community, almost as if they knew already, or like that they like almost like too much clinical language, because that's common language for us.
Right.
And when we had to work with, we had one marketing individual we worked with, we had spent thousands of dollars and they were amazing. And they talked about messaging, but we couldn't quite get it right with them. We then met with another individual who was real straightforward. Like real straightforward, and like gave us all this feedback about like our name, all these things. And that was the moment, that was the shift of like, all right, we get it that it needs to be to people postpartum. We get that it needs to be specifically to a target audience, meaning like moms that are postpartum in the first year, instead of like, because we really wanted to help everyone. We're like, but everybody can help from this. And they're like, but it's not clear. What is clear is you are trying to talk to everybody, and you can't talk to everybody and talk to your target audience at the same time, you know?
Yeah. I cannot stress that enough. Like, I mean, God, we had so many conversations. And this was around the same time I was building my business, my private practice pro business. And this is a conversation, I would say the biggest mistake I see therapists make when they create online offerings is trying to serve everyone. And I think that applies when you're starting a private practice, but I think even more so when you're creating online resources, because people have to be able to find you on the internet. It's not just like their friend is saying, oh, she's great, like you'll like her no matter what. It's like they have to be able to search you and find you. And, I think about like you and I sent back, and I'll tag her in the show notes, but there's that gal that I think we both follow on YouTube, Sunny, I forget her last name.
Yeah. God, I'm not going to remember.
I'm not going to remember either, but I'll put it in the show notes. But
she's amazing though.
She's amazing. And one of the biggest takeaways I learned from following her on YouTube was a specific client on a specific point in their journey with a specific solution.
Yep.
And I think, it's something that I don't always want to hear. I don't think it's something any of us want to hear because we get scared.
Right.
Like we want to serve everybody, but it's like, no, like a specific person, something they're struggling with, and you're offering them at a specific moment that they're struggling, something really tangible that they take away. And like if anything, I've seen both of us and both of our businesses in the last year really have to niche down in order to serve. You think you're going to niche down and serve less people, but you actually end up serving way more people.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Well, and you've given us some really good feedback like over the last year. Like we've had some tough texts, some voice memos, some calls, and just about like this messaging because
it's hard.
It's so hard to let go of it. Like when you really genuinely feel like, gosh, I really want to help all these people. I really believe that I can.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get to those people if it's not clear, and you being able to say like, no, like you really have to get down to like a specific target.
Yeah.
And like, and almost like mourning the loss of like what I wanted it to be versus what it is. And then getting to see like, wow, like it's actually really amazing now that it is more focused. And you're right. We do get to help more people. But it's hard. That is the hardest, but most important part is the messaging.
It feels like, I know for me, sometimes it feels like really personal to let it, to let part of the idea of who else I was gonna, like, I know when I first started Private Practice Pro, before it was an Instagram thing, I thought maybe this is just a healthcare consulting business that serves like doctor, because my husband's a doctor, right? So I was like, this could like opening a healthcare business in general. And luckily I got some good advice early on, like, why, there's thousands of therapists out there. Why would you just try to help everybody? But but it can feel really personal. Like, I don't want to let go of the idea of what this should have been or what I thought this should be versus like what it needs to be,
Yeah. I can relate to that. Like we had such a hard time for a minute letting go of the name Preparing for Baby because we really wanted to help people before. Like we were like, no, but we want to help people not go through this. Like we don't want
we don't want them to struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like waiting till someone's failing their, class in order to take action or, whatever. And it's like, well, why? Because if everybody knew this stuff and then feeling like, well, because the reality is one, not everyone will go through what we went through. And no one wants to hear that. And two, even if they are going to, they may not still be ready or wanting to hear about it yet.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you have to meet them where they're at. Tell me, Sasha, so a lot of people listening to this probably want to open an online course, but are running full practices. And I know you're running a full practice and you have 2 little kids and you're married.
Yeah.
So how does that...
Crazy.
Are you crazy? No. I'm a little crazy. Yes. But how are you doing it? How did you make time? Like, how does that all fit together?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like you and I talk like kind of a lot about like this subject as a bigger whole. Honestly, like one of the biggest things is staying within your values. And this is something, again, like you and I talk about a lot, is like our core values. And, for me, like my core values are being able to spend more time with my family, essentially. And so everything kind of has to filter through that. Like, I love what I do. I love helping other moms and dads. Like, I love seeing people. I don't love seeing them struggle, but I love meeting a mom and then seeing her a couple months later feel like herself again and actually love her life. Like, that is one of the coolest feelings in the world. And to know that like we're going to spread that all over the place with our course is amazing. But it can't be at the sacrifice of me, like trash canning my whole life, right? Because then I'm not living what I'm teaching other people either, right? So for me, it's being able to give myself a pause and really think about, is that something I like want to do? And is that something I want to do now? Is it something I should be doing right now? And kind of putting it through a filter, because I want to do everything. Like you and I will like talk and I'm like, I want to do this and this, this. And I have to like go, whoa, like hold on a second, right? I like, and you know me, I believe anything is possible. It's just a series of steps and like getting there. And it's not all possible or necessary to do right now. And so like keeping your feet where they need to be. And I guess is like setting your boundaries of like, what's the time that you actually have and being realistic about it. Like I might want the course to be launched in 3 months. Like, let's say if I just started, but at what sacrifice, right? What would that look like to do it in 3 months versus a year, let's say, if I'm working a full-time practice? You know,
I'll tell you what it looks like, because I did it in 3 months and it was insane. It was crazy. Yeah. So I think it's, again, like going back to your values, holding good boundaries, feeling comfortable saying no. I keep a notepad now of all the ideas that I have. And so does Alex. And it's really just not yet, you know, so that my brain doesn't hear no and I get disappointed or frustrated or bummed out. It's just not yet. Yeah.
So that I can focus on like where I am right now so that I can eventually get to more fun projects and more fun things. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like this is a lot of what we talk about. And like, this is something I really struggle with. Like, I'm exactly the same way, probably why we're friends. Like, and like I think we were memoing this morning at like 6:30 in the morning about other business ideas, you know? And I mean, and so often I have to come back to why am I doing it? Why am I? And it's taken me a decade, and I've had, it's taken me a decade to learn to hold myself accountable. Like this is like maybe TMI, but like I have my like fantasy when I think about like how I'd like to spend a weekend if I had this would make me sound great. I'm like having a little anxiety. If I could spend a weekend doing whatever I want, I would go stay at a beautiful hotel, lock the door, and I would work on my business all weekend.
I knew you were going to say
I'm not even kidding. I'm like, really can't even, but I would, because I love it. I love creating content.
Yeah.
I love, and that's like not conducive with being married and having a child.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I'm in a phase of my life where I really only have childcare from 9 to 1 every day. And in that time, I also need to like work out and go grocery shopping and like do the things that make me function as a person and run a business. And so I've had to get so much more clear about how I spend my time. And it's still not perfect. Like this is the thing my husband will hold me accountable for, or even like my parents will be like, it seems like you're working, like you're getting up too early or you're doing whatever. And but I also think the other end of the spectrum is other people who might be listening to this who are like, that's not my personality type. I want to create other resources, and they're struggling to make time. And I would say if you're in a phase of life where that's you, where you ultimately you want to do it, but you're having trouble getting motivated. My like favorite Elizabeth Gilbert quote is like, what's your favorite show? She says The Sopranos, and then you say not anymore. Like, that's my number one hack. Like if I love TV. I love binging a good show. Like I've watched West Wing, the show, like 6 times.
Yeah.
Not even kidding, like all the way through 6 times.
But man, she's calling us all out, right?
Yes, but it's like, if you want to make the time,
to watch
TV.
Yeah.
That's like, don't take the time from your kids, take the time from TV. You know?
God, I love that line too. You had sent me that podcast with that. And it's such a great line. And because you know what? It calls us all to the table and says like, we all have time. But it also comes down to but it's okay to say no, but it comes down to, is this course that I'm wanting to create, or is this thing that I'm wanting to do more important than my time watching The Sopranos? And if that time watching The Sopranos is really about time connecting with my partner, or maybe it's time I'm watching TV with my kid, and that's the only time I feel like we come together, or whatever the thing is, it's okay for it to be a no, but it's a conscious no.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And then it's also looking for like, where's the other like sneaky time in there? Or like, let's say you have 15 minutes. Like if you have 15 minutes a week, okay, well, make a list of the steps that you need to be able to get to your course, and take that 15 minutes every week to start doing it until you have a little more time and a little more time and a little more time.
100%. I mean, I think about like, if you look at either of our Instagram followings, I would say a third of all of our, or at least a lot of your reels and a lot of my reels, are made in the car. And I'm assuming that's in like school drop-off line. You know, that's the beauty of an online business, is there's a certain amount you could do. You can sneak in here and there and just try to do, you know? But I took that away from you so much, that like you've said to me, God, for years now, like, everything is possible. It's just a series of steps. And I mean, that's like, I feel like one thing I live by now that I totally learned from you. When I was like 20.
True, right?
But
like
it's true.
Everything, like, and so like, you know, it's like, just make the list. Like, what are all the things I need to do or research or learn in order to do this thing, and take whatever time you have. Like, you and I joke about this all the time. Like, I would love to do like a bajillion different things. Like, so would you. Like, but it's like we only have so much time. So it's like, all right, let's put that on the dream list, right? And then like right now I'm going to stay doing this to finish this. And then next I'll look on the dream list again and pull something else.
When our kids are like in college and we're like, one day when I finally remember what it's like to feel bored, then I think even this morning I was like, Sasha, I know this is not possible. And I know neither of us have time to do it, but I think we should have a podcast about opening an online course. I was like, I'm giving the big preface. Like, I know it's, but like maybe when our kids in college, like by then, you know, like, but yeah, I know it's a little wild. Okay. So I want to go back to one other thing, totally going to jump around and go to when you started your private practice. So for anyone listening, can you just give a refresher again about where your practice is and who you see? So we can remember.
So not like the story of like how.
Well, just first, I'm going to ask you about that. But first, just tell us, just give us the frame of like where you're located, who you see, are you virtual or not, you know, that kind of thing. So we have some framework.
So I'm located in Westlake Village, California. So I do virtual and in-person sessions. Part of that is just because I'm a mom and I want to be, you know, virtual 2 days a week so I can be home with my kids more. I really specialize in, again, to simplify it, therapy with moms, especially the moms that are struggling postpartum or with anxiety and ADHD, especially during those phases. And yeah, I mean, I just love helping moms through that transition and finding their way to being able to really enjoy being a mom, and challenging all the unexpected, challenging all the unrealistic expectations. Again, just being able to enjoy it.
I love it. And I love Westlake Village. I think about where your office is, and I'm like, my favorite salad place is Greens Up.
Oh my gosh, it's gone.
What? Are you serious? What happened to it?
I'm not kidding. It's gone, and it's actually really sad.
Because that's like, your office is right. I literally thought like, well, her office is close to the best salad plate. That makes me really sad.
Literally, it was part of what sold it for me. That, and like we have ducks in a pond and all that.
I've heard about these ducks,
and
so
they move.
From everybody. Like the other people who are in her office suite are also all good friends of mine. And on different occasions, each one of you have told me about the fucking ducks. I'm like, oh yeah, you guys and these ducks.
Yeah.
Like,
man, they're so cute because you literally see the cycle of life, Kelly. Like, it's so nuts. Like, we go from having like literal baby chicks like this big to like full grown, and then they leave, and then another set. But you see them grow like into little duck teenagers, and
oh my god,
they're so cute. And they just follow each other around, or they're in the parking lot. It's like so cool. the coolest thing. Yeah. So if you don't really want therapy, but you want to see the ducks, like come
You
over
come
to our
over.
office.
Yeah, I'm always like jealous of your therapy roommates. I'm like, this is a collection of really wonderful people.
Oh, we have the best time there. We have the
Oh,
best
I'm
time.
sure. I was like, I don't think I would
Yeah.
ever get any work done. I would like never have clients. I just like
It's
wait.
like if you were like in a college dorm with like your like all like your closest friends or like your besties or something, you know, we just need to pull you over there.
I know. I'm never going back to having an office. I've decided. I mean, I never
totally
say
get it.
never, but I went virtual in the pandemic. Never.
Yeah.
I always thought like I would have. I still have my therapy office furniture that's like in my. You should like. Sam and I joke that our house looks like a therapy office because it's like a collection of all the office furniture we've all had, and now.
Well, that's so great.
But I love being virtual. But I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, it
being
is a different
virtual is
dynamic with clients, you know?
I like the mix. I love being in person with people. I feel like there's like an energy, like a magic. Like I don't know what it like. It's really special, and I feel like it's just nice to sit with someone one on one. It's like you and I, right? Like I love talking to you, but gosh, it's like so special when we get together.
Oh
in
my gosh,
person.
yeah. I'm like, wait, I haven't seen you in like months, but we talk all the time. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's like it's not bad versus good. It's just different.
Yeah.
You know? So I love both. I think I'll always probably do a mix of both.
yeah. Well, and like I'll say, as somebody who doesn't have an office anymore, man, as a mom, I miss my office. Like I'm sitting in my home office, my guest room right now, and there's like a pillow under the door and another door, and I mean, like I'm trying to like make it real quiet in here. So I do miss my office. But okay, so I guess the question I had for you is like, when you were thinking about opening your private practice, what were the barriers that, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, what stopped you from doing it earlier?
That's such a good question. And I feel like it's a disservice that all of us do to each other in a way is like, it's all the myths that we hear like beforehand. Like I just remember hearing so many comments, and I can't even pin it on one person because it was all over the place about like from the very start of school that like you're not going to make money being a therapist. So like if you become a therapist, like better think of something else to, you know, like it just like this piece of like, it's not possible. The guilt of like feeling like you're supposed to like sacrifice the things you want because you've chosen a profession to help people. The myths about how hard it is to start a business when again, it's a series like of steps, right? And like having someone in their life, like what you're doing, like your course, being able to have that, like I would have like, I mean, like that is amazing to have that opportunity to be able to go like, okay, if I just follow this program, then I can do it.
Right.
Right. Like that's what I felt like I needed at that time. Cause that was the biggest barrier. Right. Is this piece of like, it's going to be way too hard. I'm not a business person. I don't have a business degree. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm never going to make money doing it. There's never going to be clients that come. And realizing that was completely all untrue. And I remember my first week in my private practice and feeling so happy and free. Like even right now, I can feel the feeling I felt and just like looking out my window and realizing like I did it. And it just was not as complicated as everyone. It was
pretty simple. Yeah.
It was just a series of steps. Yeah. And I just needed to know those steps and be willing to put in the work or hire a company to do different parts because there's companies that will file your S corp for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like if you ask the right people for the right supports, right? It's like, it's really not impossible.
Yeah.
You know, and marketing is really like, in my opinion, it's just being yourself. Like
it's just making friends.
Constantly marketing.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're a good clinician, like, and you're communicating with, you know, your collaborating partners, if you're friendly, if you're real, like you're not pretending, that's the best marketing, you know?
100%. And I mean, I think about that too. Like I can remember a time when you and me and a few of our other good friends we're all thinking of practices and whatever. And I can remember being at a restaurant and I can visualize where we were getting out of your Forerunner and everybody and one of us saying, I'll do it if you do it. I'll do it if you do it. And this was like maybe 3 years or some, before any of us did it. And I think back on that time and, there were so many valuable things that happened during those years. But now I think I look at my course and not to like prop the course up, but the biggest piece of feedback I get from people is like, oh, this was actually very simple. Like, and I tell people like, yes, it actually is so simple. It's not like, and I think about like, there are thousands of other private practices out there. And yet somehow, I don't know if it's because we don't learn it in school or whatever, but like, I think somehow private practice becomes this like very complicated thing that therapists think they can't do. And yet like, I wish like I could go back to that version of all of us and be like, no. Like, here's a spreadsheet or not even a spreadsheet. Here's a Word document of like the steps, like just check them off, because that's like basically what it is,
Well, and it's like there really should be a course in college. I was like, you should create the curriculum for a course. Like,
oh my God, I thought about this. This goes back to our other problem. I've literally thought about this, but like, here's the thing. In order to do that, I've actually researched this. Because curriculum for MFT programs or any, I know the MFT ones because I work at Pepperdine, but like is determined by the state. So what they teach, you could do an elective, and I've thought about this and Pepperdine has incorporated some of this in like workshops and things you can take outside of school or like in lunch or whatever. But unless it comes from the state, it's not mandated curriculum, and they have to teach to the mandated curriculum, and so
that makes sense.
It's the reason they don't do it. So in order to do it, you could like, I thought this like, oh, let's have it and then let's pitch it to schools and whatever. But you'd actually have to like lobby the state. And I was like, that's outside my pay grade.
Yeah, that feels complicated.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I thought about it.
It's like, what they need is like, they just need more courses. And this is like every profession, right? Of like, what are all the different things that you could do with like, in this field and degree? And the answer, like, I remember when I was teaching too, like, I remember like saying to my students, like, whatever you want to do, that's possible. Like, again, it just comes back to steps. Like, you just have to research how to do it, when someone actually needs that service, if they actually need it versus you think it's a good idea. And like, but it's all possible.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
just don't hear that.
Even in the network of people we know, like think about like Robert Scholes is doing like crisis and going into colleges after crisis events. I'm totally botching what he does, but like that's something he does more consultation. Like I have a friend who helps families of kids with diabetes and does coaching on just the emotional stuff around having diabetes. I have a friend who's an emergency room social worker. Like we have friends creating online courses, friends writing books. It's like there's a wide range of things you could do as a therapist that when you think of being in therapy in school, maybe working in an agency or working in a treatment center, like it's just like it feels like this linear path when it's not,
Yeah. And it's like, don't get me wrong. I loved working for the agency I did. Yeah. But it was like, there was no way that was sustainable for me to have the life I want, meaning having a healthy marriage, time with my kids that was moldable to whatever fit at that time in my life, because it changes all the time. To be able to do creative things and like that were all my own, like just for fun. And to be able to go wherever I wanted, like do whatever I needed. And that was the biggest challenge for me. And it's like, again, like agency work is amazing, and it's not always sustainable long term, unfortunately, and that's not on them. It's just that there's so much.
Agencies are underfunded. I mean, they're certainly not on the agency themselves, and I think about back on like a conversation we had a long time ago too, where you said to me, like, what do you need right now in this phase of life that you're going to get out of this specific, because we've known each other across many jobs at this point, you know? And I think back on my pre-licensed time in various settings, I really needed hours. And a really great way for me to get hours was working in treatment centers or working in agencies, because clients are there, you show up. And also the thing I like that I like to tell students at Pepperdine or other places where I've worked is like, sometimes in agencies, you're getting really good supervision and training. Sometimes you're not.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But like, think about like some of the people, like I even know some of the people you worked with in your, you know, that, and think about some of the training you got. Like, I don't know, a lot of times in private practices, sometimes you get good training, sometimes you don't. But a lot of times in agencies, there's a lot of extra trainings that you're getting that are kind of embedded in, you know?
Oh yeah. The agency I first worked for, especially, like I felt like that agency, when I very first started, you had to do a month worth of training before you ever got to sit with any of their youth. And it was amazing. And then every month they had ongoing stuff. And then that continued to evolve. And the place that I worked at later that we met also started to eventually develop like a training and more consultation and stuff like that. But I feel like that early time in our careers, although like, I mean, obviously I would have loved to work less and be paid more, like who wouldn't, right? All at the same time, I felt like it was some of the best training I ever got, because it was sitting with families at like the hardest times of their lives and really seeing like all the stuff I had learned in school in real life. And I wouldn't take any of it back, because
I wouldn't either.
Taught me so much. And brought me to where I am now. But I'm also, it's like the right here, right now, like right here, right now. My goal is to be with my family as much as possible, right? And to do something that feels purposeful and fulfilling when I'm not with them.
Oh, totally. And, you know, I think too of like some of my dearest friends, some people I really, you know, like that was a very fun time of life in a lot of, you know, like early. And this was, you know, a little later. It wasn't necessarily at an agency, but when we worked at a treatment center, I can remember leaving one time at 11 p.m. And not because we were burnt out, but because we were talking. We were doing this, you know, and like you, me, and a bunch of other people, you know, and we were just, it was a fun. And now as a mom, there's no way I could do that. But that was like, I learned a lot about myself too, as like a baby therapist. That's what I always say.
Well, what like a special time, you know, like it's like when you're just you, right? And just able to do that kind of stuff. And,
like I wouldn't want to do it on a consistent basis, but I would give anything to, first of all, want to stay up till 11, because I never do that anymore. And two, to sit with that group of people and like just have a chance for 3 hours to talk at night. Like, oh my God, I would give anything for that right now. That would be so fun. You should do it. Except for like
but instead
at 7
we go to bed at like 7:30.
Yeah, I'm like, I think I texted you last night at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and I was like, let's just be really clear, I'm going to bed. Like, but
and you know, normally I'm not even up by then. But like Tuesdays and Thursdays, those are my later nights. So my later nights.
Oh yeah, I'm like late at 9 o'clock. I'm like, it's 9. I gotta go. But the flip side is I wake up at 4:30. So, okay. Yeah. Anyway,
you do wake up early.
I know, it's crazy.
It's impressive.
It's a whole
gold, man.
It's a whole. I like the quiet. I really like being alone in the morning.
Yeah.
I got a stew cup. I love it.
Wait, you got a new cup?
Yeah, I got one of those Ember cups. It keeps the coffee warm for an hour and a half. This is my trick.
No way.
Hey, maybe you should get one of these.
Perfect podcasting time.
I know. Yeah, it is. I actually bought it for Sam to take to his office, but then I stole it. So, you know. Anyway, okay, here's my last question for you. I want to know if you think about your career in the next decade, what do you hope for Sasha? I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this. This is like unplanned.
No, I'm glad you didn't tell me. I probably would have overthought it, you know?
Yeah.
Gosh, okay, so the next decade, what do I see? Honestly, I hope like over the next decade that somehow we can spread this course to as many people as possible and partner with as many agencies as we can to be able to donate it, to be able to give it, to truly be able to help as many people. Because so like, I'm like, oh, it's going to be great. Because it like people deserve to be helped. Like people deserve support.
Yeah.
and to be able to love motherhood,
Yeah.
So
It is such a labor of love. I mean, I've watched you and Alex over the last few years, just like, I think there's so much that goes into creating resources for people, for families that people never see. There's so many conversations that happen at 6 a.m. about how do we say it this way. So, I think one phrase you and I used to talk about, or we still do sometimes, is like, how do you talk to her? Like, what does she need to hear? What does that mom need to hear that she's not hearing? And there's so much to it that goes into it. That's so much love that people don't even know once they, you see someone's Instagram ad or something. But I do think that comes through, Yeah. You can tell when people are in it.
I know people are watching this and like, what a crybaby. It's funny because I think it's that piece of just like remembering how lonely it felt and just like never wanting a mom to feel like that, and just like there's so much information out there and there's such tangible things. It's like the steps we talk about, right? Anything's possible with steps. It's the same thing with this stuff. Like if we figure out what's wrong, then we can and sometimes what people think is the thing that's wrong is not the thing that's actually wrong. Like I would have thought like, I'm just not a good mom. Like, and it would have been like, all right, I got to just keep trying harder. But that wasn't it.
Yeah.
There was more things. There was more risk factors that I didn't even realize I had to be able to feel better. So I would love to just spread our course all over. I'd love to keep working with moms. I'd love to just have more and more time with my kids. And that's really it. Just simple.
Same, dude. I want that too.
Yeah. What about you? What's your tenure?
Not to wake up. I didn't. That was you were supposed to ask me back. No, I'm kidding. I think it's similar. I think continuing to hold myself accountable to my own value set of more time with Max and my son, and I think that, over the last few years, I've really, that's been my number one thing over the last few years is, sticking to my values of who I am, what I want to put out into the world, how I want to spend my time. And I think, for me, in terms of the work, the career work is, I, at the root of it, love seeing entrepreneurs realize they can do something. And it's not so much about they go out and they make this business, but I think there's so much personal growth that happens when you're willing to take a risk on yourself and you're willing to take a risk on an idea that you have. And I know for me, I had a stationery business. I had a wedding photography that, and it's not really about the business itself, but there's so much to have the courage to go out and start a business, whatever it is, online courses, private practice, takes that trust in myself. And that's what I like seeing. That's when I like to see the lights come on and people I work with. And so that's the driving force behind that. And then also the fact that I like selling online products. I like having time out of the chair. And really, especially during COVID, it kind of freaked me out to be totally reliant on my health being good enough that I could always be earning money in health. That I had to be sitting in the chair to earn money.
It's a great point.
And so that was maybe a fear-based decision, but so I think, more of the same.
No, I think it's real, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was scary. It was a scary time.
That's special what you said. For your listeners, right? Anyone who's thinking of making a course, it's what's the thing that makes you feel that specialness? Because we're both describing it, right? This passion. I'm describing the seeing a mom go from hopeless to happy, right? And you're describing seeing the entrepreneur going from hopeful but unsure to success and living their dream.
Yeah.
And it's finding that thing and then building a course around that. How do you take them from one to the other?
Yeah, I know. It's been great. Sasha, I could talk to you for the next 3 hours and I probably will.
Let's be real. I was going to
say, whenever we hang out, 3 seconds later after we drive away, I'm okay, I have to tell you this. So I probably will.
Same.
But thank you so much for taking time today. I really appreciate it. Anyone who wants to find you can click on everything in the show notes down below.
One.
And I'll talk to you in like 5 minutes,
I'll talk to you in like 5 minutes. It's been really fun. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is sponsored by Simple Practice. I've been using Simple Practice since 2016, which has helped me run a smooth and profitable private practice over the years. It has simplified everything from scheduling to billing, giving me a better balance between the work I'm so passionate about and the family time I'm not willing to miss out on. Check out the episode notes to get a free 2-month trial of Simple Practice, my preferred all-in-one HIPAA-compliant solution. Welcome back to Ask Kelley Anything, where I answer your burning private practice questions from my voicemail. All right, so today's question is a good one, and let's tune in. I'm going to play it right now.
Hi, Kelley. This is Sarah. I've been a follower for a long time now, and thanks to all of your inspiration, I'm coming up on a year in private practice, and where I'm at now is I really feel that I need to start creating a following online. And to be completely honest with you, that just terrifies me. I have never really done the social media or any of that stuff. And I was really hoping that you could help someone like me to really get there. And what would be either your top tips or just the thing that's going to help me push past those fears to move into the next phase of where I want my practice to be and how I want to show up in that online space. So again, thank you so much for everything you do. And I cannot wait to hear what you have to share about this topic. Thank you.
Wow, that is a big question, and obviously one that I get asked a lot. Where to start on the social media thing? Okay, so first of all, I think social media is one of those things that kind of snuck up on a lot of us as therapists. Prior to the pandemic, what I found was that therapists weren't quite as active on social media, and then 2020 happened, and all of a sudden, you kind of saw the rise of the TikTok and Instagram therapists. So the first thing I want to say before I get into this is I'm a believer that you don't have to use social media to market your private practice. There are tons of ways to market your private practice. Social media is one very useful tool. I do not believe it's the only way. I do think it's a very effective way to market your private practice, and it's a great way to reach a wider audience, especially if you're licensed in multiple states, or especially if you do telehealth and you want to see people across your whole state. So the very first step I would say to this person and to anyone listening to this really is to pick a platform that you already enjoy spending time on. If you don't like social media, or you don't like using Facebook, or you don't like using Instagram, or you don't like using YouTube, then pick a platform that you like. Don't just pick the platform that's the most obvious. I think right now a lot of therapists love Instagram, a lot of therapists love TikTok. But if you love YouTube, then do YouTube. Because the way to build a social media following involves consistency in the long term. Unfortunately, social media isn't the type of thing where you can post once a month and expect to get tons of clients. It really requires you to be consistent. So the first step that you really need to take is just to pick a platform, a social media platform that you like. And the second step I would say is you want to get really clear first on why you're there and who you're there to serve. So I see a lot of therapists make that mistake early on, that they think that I'm just going to market my private practice. And so they're putting lots of logos and pictures of their offices. But really the goal of being on social media is to build an audience of people who could be potential clients. And in order to do that, you have to give them content or information that's valuable to them. And so again, in order to do that, you have to make sure you're super, super clear on your niche and who you want to work with, not only in your office, but also on social media. And I have a whole niche workbook on this, which I will link, and you can find on my website, where I really help you take a deep dive into what your niche is. But it's especially important on social media that you get really clear on who you want to work with. And once you do that, I would really recommend sitting down and like writing it out, saying, this is the type of client I want to work with. And I help you do this in my workbook, but like, this is the type of client I want to work with. Here are the issues that they're struggling with. Here are some common pain points of things that they're struggling with. And then rather than just getting started with posting right away, what I actually recommend doing is sitting down and creating 10, 20, 30 posts that really speak to that pain point, whether they're YouTube videos or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, doesn't matter, but really get used to creating content that addresses that ideal client's pain point. And it takes a lot of the fear out of it, because then you realize through creating those first pieces of content that you're there to serve other people. You're not there for what people think of as like self-promotion. You're really there to help others. So it can help us get over some of that fear. And then also, if you create content before you ever post it, it allows you to, once you do start posting that, to kind of have a backstock of posts that you're ready to send out into the world without overthinking it. So those would be my first few tips, and lots more to come on this in all these future episodes. We have a lot of social media content in all the podcasts, so I hope that helps. If you would like to be featured on Ask Kelley Anything, I love getting listener questions from you guys. Anything about private practice goes. And the best way to do that is actually just to give me a call and leave me a question on my voicemail. So I'm going to tell you the phone number right now and make sure to write it down. Here it is: 805-243-8241. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.